what is the difference between perfection and excellence?
My work versus everyone else's.
Oh, I was going to make that joke about your work.
Yeah. I figured.
What is the difference between perfection and excellence? Here's an interesting question: are they both worth striving for?
I don't think perfection even exists, really.
Which makes it not worth striving for.
Because if you,
in my opinion,
I mean, if you strive for it, and you never hit it, then what's the point of striving for perfection if it does it exist? Is there a perfection that exists?
No, and you'll never hit it, so you'll never be satisfied with what you're doing, and you'll never actually finish what you start.
I think probably
that's the problem.
In the context of what we're talking about, I mean, perfection probably exists in mathematical
That's what
terms.
I was thinking, math.
There's a perfect circle out there somewhere, but
No. Only in the mind.
Mark disagrees with that.
And I think the closer we try and get to it, like the more effort we have to put into it. Like it takes a certain amount of effort to get it to a level of excellence, and then to get it all the way to perfection, it's like your drag becomes heavier and heavier and heavier. And at a certain point, it's like, would it be a better use of my time to start something new and begin the progress on that thing instead of just ever striving for this last bit that gets ever harder to reach?
There's a smart person in the room. I'm intimidated.
Thank goodness. Why do we strive for excellence? I think what's the difference between excellence and perfection, I think, is a question asked by someone who's interested in those things as goals to strive for. Like, so why? Like, what's worthy about that quest? Is that an unworthy quest? Like, what should we be striving for?
I think everybody appreciates excellence. I think innately humans...
Do they? Because have you seen the things that succeed in this
Also,
world?
I love Hot Pockets. And are they excellent?
Is this just the point where we say excellence is subjective and the whole question dies?
You could be the best Hot Pocket of all the Hot Pockets. I think that's great. You can be the most excellent one. They all are different.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectionism is something that I've had to spend a lot of years trying to not be. And so it's a little more personal for me. I think when you apply too much pressure on yourself and you value yourself based on your performance and you try to be perfect, which is not realistic, it has ramifications that affect more than you. And so I view it as a strong negative, actually. Excellence, and there's levels of excellence, right? Like you can be, you can strive and go really, really high and take it, as far as you can. I think that's what we should strive for. But perfection is that level with which there are no flaws or defects, and I don't think that exists. I think you can convince yourself that that it's possible, but I don't think it is.
I like so if we just look at perfection as being no flaws whatsoever,
Okay.
and say that that's unattainable and that's
In
an
many works, in
unhealthy
most
thing
works.
outside of math.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, goodbye perfection.
Okay.
But I do really appreciate the idea of excellence, and that is something that we strive for here. There are so many times during a project that we could just stop because it's good enough, or
It's at a viable point.
It's at a viable point, or it's as good as this other stuff that other people are doing, or it's as good as whatever. And something in us says, yeah, but it's not what we want it to be yet. It hasn't gotten as close to excellence as we want to push it, or we feel like we could push it. And I think there is something beautiful about striving for excellence and setting that as a goal for yourself and having that be something that you want to bring in the world. Like sometimes when we work on things, I find myself it's not even just that I want to be the one to achieve this excellence. It's that this thing deserves, and the world deserves, this thing to be excellent, because so much of what is available to us in this life isn't. Mm-hmm. And the more interesting question is, where do you stop?
That's exactly where I was going. When I went to art school, we were challenged with the question, when is it done? When is it done? Because you can always make it better. Just as a graphic designer, you think, gosh, well, if I had more time, I could make it even better. And that's always true. That's always true. There's not enough time, right? So you have to deliver. You have to ship. You have to stop. You have timelines. You have deadlines. And what matters, and at what point do you stop? Because you don't have unlimited time. You don't have unlimited energy. You don't have unlimited resources. So perfection is not attainable because math.
Because math.
Because math.
I think Krista probably has a very unique sense of this too, because as an illustrator, you know, you're putting out pieces of work pretty consistently, and they do have to be really good, right? I mean, like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes the work that I do, it's live and it gets done, and it has to get done on a timeline, so I can't always be excellent. But how do you know when you're illustrating that it's gotten to a point that you're satisfied with, that's excellent in your eyes?
I definitely have a strong perfectionism problem. I think that, you know, I see everything and I just see its potential and what it could be, and I end up falling into that own trap that I identify, which is just endlessly going to that cycle and putting in all this extra effort. And so one thing that I'm trying to implement is just stopping at the end of a work period, putting it down wherever it is, no matter what, even if I know there's things I want to do with it, and then look at it when I'm fresh, when I've just been doing something else, and get that first read on it and view it as if I weren't myself, view it as if I were somebody else viewing it for the first time. And I feel like that gives me a lot of objectivity to be able to identify, okay, what do I really need to do on this?
You had some word that in a meeting a while back. It was like some smart person word that I literally looked up while we were sitting there. That it was like an inverse half-life concept. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I think it was. I'm not a math person either, but it was asymptotic, which is like, so as it's basically describes the idea like as you're approaching this thing that can never be reached, which I don't understand from a math perspective, but I feel like I feel it from a soul perspective, or like a metaphoric perspective. Like I can really feel that feeling of just like, you know, you're ever getting nearer but never reaching.
That hit me so hard when you mentioned that, because, you know, the idea of half-life, so like radiation or whatever, it's, you know, let's just say every X period of time it's halved. How much is there is halved. How much is there is halved. And at a certain point you're having some minuscule amount, but it will never reach zero ever, because you can't cut something in half and ever come up with nothing.
And so even mathematically that makes sense.
Right.
If you're cutting it in half over and over again, at what point is that half no longer worth your time?
The first however many cuts is big. And what she was describing was something that was basically the opposite. It's like, you know, during this period of time you go so far, and then so far, and then so far, but you're getting this diminishing return of how far you're going. At a certain point, it's like the time you're putting in isn't really getting you much further. Okay, you know, yeah, you could go a smidge further forever, but you've reached this point of diminishing return where it's not worth your time, and the project's really not improving.
And like she said, you could have got 4 other things done in that time.
Right, and you never get there. There being perfection. And
so to kind of wrap it all up in less words, like I like you all to do, the difference between excellence and perfection. Perfection really isn't attainable unless you're a mathematician. And the levels of excellence that you can continue to try for, there's a diminishing return at some point. And so when you can look at it from a sense of objectivity with fresh eyes, as if you're someone else seeing your project, that's where you can kind of decide, am I done? How close to done am I? How close to excellent is this?
yeah, understand that perfection is the wrong goal, even though many of us are just sort of innately compelled to feel like we need to do that or we have failed. And that at a certain point, it's excellent enough.
Hashtag excellent enough.
Orange Nebula. Excellent enough.
Imperfect.
I love my berry scone, my berry scone, my berry scone. I love my berry scone early in the morning.
It then goes to the next person on the couch.